Politicians in Nunavut are calling for the RCMP to make body cameras mandatory. That's after a video was posted online this week from the community of Kingnite. Here's that video. The video shows an RCMP officer, as you can see there, running down an Inuk man with the door of his truck before arresting him. The officer has since been removed from the community, and the RCMP have launched an investigation. To talk more about the incident and what should come of it, I'm joined by the Mayor of Iqaluit, Kenny Bell, and Iqaluit's Deputy Mayor, Janice Bitsulek-Brewster. Hi to both of you. Thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Deputy Mayor Brewster, I'll start with you if you don't mind. I wanted to get your take on the video and the reaction that you had when you watched it. What went through your head as you watched that video?
My name is Janet. I was horrified and, really obviously concerned for not only the man who was run over, but also for the people who are witnessing those acts, and seeing that there were young youth present has an impact, because they're witnessing trauma in action, and I was absolutely horrified.
Mayor Bell, what about you?
Yeah, I don't know if I could say it any better than Deputy Mayor Brewster.
So you were also horrified by it?
Absolutely.
And it led you to, even though it happened in Kingnite, have the intention to bring before City Council in Iqaluit some discussion around body cameras for the RCMP. Can you tell us more about that, Mayor Bell?
Yeah, for sure. So that actually came about prior to the incident in Kingnite. It was a matter of I released it in the morning, my statement in the morning saying that I was calling for body cameras, and then a little while later I saw the video from Kingnite. So it was just a coincidence that it happened at the same time. But there's a long history of mistrust here in the north with the RCMP and our citizens, and I think that's a good building step towards fixing that.
Can you talk a little bit more, Deputy Mayor, about that mistrust, and how would you characterize it, and what is it caused by?
Well, I think it comes from years of being dehumanized as a people. One of the things that we need to do, we must address the dehumanization of Inuit and Indigenous people. That man was a man, but he was an Inuk. He's a Canadian, but he's an Inuk. And the treatment that people receive is based on the way that the state has treated us as a people since we started to live in communities, and even before that. But when we were brought into the Canadian fold, there has been a systemic dehumanization of our rights. We have been less than. My mother's name is, her given name is Nuvalinga, but the government named her E550. They gave her a number, and until we address that dehumanization, which is really a serial killer, because it gives people the feeling that they can get away with treating us less than they would treat other Canadians. And until we address that, this is going to continue to happen. And what Mayor Bell is doing in this introduction of body cams, using body cams for the RCMP, is going to give at least a small amount of protection to those citizens who come into contact with them. And also, we don't know for sure whether or not that individual was actually assaulted before he was put into the cell, or whether or not he was assaulted in the cell, as they say, by another prisoner or another person who was being held. So there are many layers to this issue, and the most basic layer is that we deserve basic human rights.
And there is, I think, 2 different investigations taking place into the RCMP's actions in this instance, and the officer has, quote, been removed from the community and placed on administrative duties. Mayor Bell, when it comes to the measures that you're talking about, making it mandatory, do you have jurisdiction? Do you need the federal government's cooperation here? Have there been any of those conversations?
Absolutely. We do need the federal government's cooperation for funding. Once I bring it to council and to the Nunavut Association of Municipalities for a resolution from them, I believe that we can go forward looking for some funding from the government. But the body cameras is just a start. We are looking for reform, justice reform straight across the country, not only just here in Nunavut, but there needs to be a major change in the way we deal with individuals in this country, especially people, Indigenous and Inuit people, Black people. The way we treat people as a whole is really embarrassing, and we're going to be remembered this for years, and we need to change that.
Do you think, are you speaking, I guess, specifically of, I know the subject is a broad one, but are you speaking especially given the conversation that we're having with what's happening south of the border, for example, of policing? Like, do you think there needs to be a fundamental rethink of the role of policing, which a lot of people have been talking about?
I'll go even further than that. I think there needs to be a fundamental rethink of how we do business as a government, whether it be municipal or federal or territorial or provincial or state in the United States. I think all of us need to rethink the way we do business and reinvent the wheel. It's going to be a long haul, but I think we need to have these discussions and do it.
Deputy Mayor, there are, to my understanding, since January, 6 different investigations taking place into RCMP actions in Nunavut. And I'm wondering what that says to you, and if there is, someone from the federal government watching right now, what your message to them is.
Well, my message would be that these investigations have to happen quickly, and they have to happen in consultation with our communities, and they have to be reported back to us. This is one of the biggest concerns that we have, is that we hear about these incidences, we understand that there are investigations underway, and then we don't hear soon enough, or we don't hear anything. And my feeling is that every one of these investigations should come with tangible, implementable actions to address these issues. And it wasn't lost on me that yesterday was the first anniversary of the final report and calls to action by the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Inquiry, and the complete lack of action on behalf of the federal government in implementing that final report has been weighing heavily on me as I consider what is happening today.
Something that the commissioners of that report called the federal government out on as well, and actually called for an international body to oversee now the implementation of those recommendations. Excellent point. Thank you very much, both of you. I'm out of time, but I appreciate your time very much this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's the Mayor of Iqaluit, Kenny Bell, along with Iqaluit's Deputy Mayor, Janet Pitsulak-Brewster. I'm going to switch gears now and actually show you something that happened in Ottawa today. The Prime Minister was asked about that incident and who should be held accountable. Take a listen to the exchange that took place.
We recognize in Canada that there are systemic discrimination problems, that we need to address our justice system. We need to address challenges in our society that are a lived reality for racialized Canadians, for Indigenous Canadians. Even as we watch with horror what's going on in the United States, we know we have an awful lot of work to do right here in Canada. As a government, we have taken steps towards that, but as you point out, there's much more to do.
And what message are you sending to Indigenous people when you are responding to my questions with a talking point you've used all week, rather than responding to the video? You say you are responding to what's happening in the U.S. with horror and consternation, and you're not expressing those same things for what's happening in your own country.
I have said from the very beginning that Canada is not immune or exempt from the things that we see going on in the United States. Racialized Canadians, Indigenous Canadians have long suffered systemic discrimination in every part of this country. And even though we have taken significant steps over the past years, there is much more to do. And the events of these past weeks in Canada and in the United States have underlined how much more work we have to do, and we will be there to do it hand in hand as allies to the Black community, to Indigenous peoples, and to all racialized Canadians.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.